We are ready for me to introduce our next speaker. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Madeline Hackney to you. Madeline and I have known each other for years. She earned her Bachelor of Fine Arts in Dance Performance from NYU, Tisch School of the Arts in 1994. She spent more than a decade performing professionally in contemporary and ballroom dance around the world. So we have a professional dancer here with us. She used her expertise as a trained professional dancer to transition into movement science, earning her PhD in movement science from Washington University in St. Louis. Dr. Hackney currently serves on the faculty of Emory University School of Medicine in the Division of Geriatrics and Gerontology as a full member of the training faculty in Emory's Neuroscience Graduate Program. Funding from NIH, NSF, Department of Veterans Affairs, the CDC and Parkinson's Foundation, and the National Endowment for the Arts support her studies involving mobility, cognition, psychosocial health in aging and neurodegenerative diseases. In fact, she pioneered the use of an adapted Argentine tango, got that? To improve mobility in individuals with Parkinson's disease. Let's welcome my colleague, my friend, Dr. Hackney, to the stage.
Thank you. Okay, hi everyone. Can you hear me? Barely? Let's see if this mic works. The Britney Spears mic.
Can you hear her?
Can you hear me now? Okay. If there's any issue, just let me know.
All right, and then this should be able to forward you. Okay.
Okay, so it's so great to be here. I'm really, really excited. Thank you so much for the invitation to be here. It's really, really wonderful. I actually happen to be a Baton Rouge native, so it's especially sweet to come back here to my hometown. And my mom's here today. You can raise your hand. So it's really, really nice. It's not often that I have any family in the audience at these talks. So yeah, I've been working in Parkinson's for quite a while, since 2006, and it's been a real labor of love. It's been a joy. It's been very fulfilling. And I'm just really excited to present some of this information to you today about some of my research and research of others that's really showing that social dancing, so think social dance, it's like tango for one, but also it could be waltz, it could be foxtrot, swing, salsa, anything that you could do with a partner. All of these dances are the dances that I've more or less focused on for the last almost 20 years. But I am starting to also look into classical dance as well, and some more solo types. And I think you get to see a bit of a classical dance demonstration or something later on. There's a dance thing coming up? There's an interactive session. Oh, an interactive session. So be sure to stick around for that. All right, so we're going to talk about the context, the rules, and application of social dance in a rehabilitation environment. I want to show you some research that supports social dance as an effective rehabilitation approach for people with neurodegenerative conditions, which includes Parkinson's, but we've also branched out into some other conditions as well, and especially in older adults. And I also want to talk a little bit about mechanisms that underlie social dance effects on motor, cognitive, and psychosocial health. And I will even get in a little bit into imaging that we've done after people have gone through dance. And don't be intimidated by any brains or some of the things that I wrote. I'm going to explain everything in clear terms, I hope anyway, in a summary so you'll get like a general idea of what the landscape is. So of course the 21st century has critical neurological problems that we need to solve, including things like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. And these epidemics unfortunately impact mobility, cognition, and mood. And so what we need is a multifactorial solution. We need to attack it from all different ways because there are multiple pathways that lead to Parkinson's or Alzheimer's in the first place. And some literature from animals shows that rehab that combines both something that challenges you physically and cognitively or mentally often results in long-lasting effects and long-term changes in the brain. So because of that sort of information, we know that dance therapy may be something really good that a lot of people could engage in, because it engages both cognition and physical activity at the same time. And in fact, partner dance is something that some of you may have had experience with, maybe at your wedding, or maybe you actually danced it at some point in your life. But it's a sophisticated yet very accessible system of tactile communication where a leader communicates goals and intentions to someone who is following. So it's a conversation essentially between a leader and a follower that two human beings can engage in. And so because of this, I've done a lot of work since about 2006 or so in a form of Argentine tango that I adapted specially for the needs of people with Parkinson's, the needs of individuals, older adults, and especially older veterans living with visual impairment. We also did a study for African American caregivers who were caring for a parent who had dementia, and therefore they were at higher risk of developing it. And then if you look at, I'm going to use this handy dandy pointer. This is actually in Argentina itself. That's at the first International Tango Therapy Conference. They have those in Argentina and perhaps elsewhere. But I got to attend this in 2008, and that's what probably you all think about as the beautiful position of Argentine tango. That's in Rosario, Argentina. And then, of course, this is where I keep on coming back. I actually studied Parkinson's in the beginning in my doctoral degree, and then I ventured into low vision with veterans, and now I'm back into Parkinson's a lot. So just keep on coming back. So yeah, dance may be a cogent vehicle, a reasonable way to deliver cognitive rehabilitation. And if you've ever said, I just don't remember the steps, then you'll understand that indeed dance does engage cognition, engages cognitive processes through both imagery and creativity, and it might improve specific cognitive domains that are super important for function, for posture and gait, including spatial function and other aspects of cognition. You also may get, and this is through multiple pathways, through like cardiovascular fitness, which is super important for the brain to be thinking, and cognitive domain specific practice, and of course enhanced mobility. And so yeah, so what do you have to do when you dance? You have to engage memory because you have to remember sequences. More or less, in my classes I tried to really cut down on that remembering of sequences, and it tends to work out well. Attention and working memory, which is like in partner dancing, you're getting cues from your partner in real time. It's something that's going on and on. It's an ongoing process. Executive functions, that involves planning, organization, and set switching. Visuospatial cognition, which involves spatial relationships between people, places, and objects, between partners, and of course navigating a path. And then creativity, this is something that we don't know as much about really, and it's not studied as well, but it's actually my favorite part of cognition because I think it's just what makes us human. It's it's an ingenuity, it leads to new inventions, it leads to just all the new things, and it leads to wonderful art and stuff like that that people just kind of makes people happy. And so, yeah, this is all things that we believe that dance contributes to. So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about my research questions and the models that I've used over this last couple of decades. So we generally look at partnered or classical dance in particular, and we've looked at the rehabilitation of mobility, motor, cognitive, psychosocial, and mental domains. And I've really stuck to neurodegenerative diseases of aging, especially Parkinson's disease, and I also have some work going on in Alzheimer's. And some people say that Parkinson's and Alzheimer's are kind of like the same thing, but on two different sides of the continuum, where in Alzheimer's you get more affected mentally or cognitively in the beginning, and Parkinson's it's motor. But over time and towards end stage, they kind of look more alike. So that's what we have been doing, neurodegeneration of aging, and what we can do to make sure that people live long, long lives that are very, very full of a good health span, not just lifespan, but health span as well. So what we did was we adapted, because of my background in dance, I was able to adapt Argentine tango specifically to target specific impairments that some individuals with Parkinson's experience. And that includes bradykinesia, which is slowness or poverty of movement, balance problems, shortened steps, turning and multitasking, backward walking, the insidious and hateful freezing of gait, and internal generation of movement. So I can talk to you at length about that. I don't really have a lot of time right now to discuss this, like how it affects each one, but the idea is that there are different steps and patterns and things that you can practice within Argentine tango that can address all of these impairments. And so what we have in general, this is just the general, like what kind of classes and what takes place in these classes. In the research, what we'd be able to show is that 21 to 1.5 hour classes in 10 to 13 weeks have been beneficial. Pretty much in most of my studies, that is, everyone has both led and followed all steps, which might seem a little interesting to all of you, because maybe you think, oh my God, I could never lead, or oh my God, I could never follow. But strangely, it's worked out pretty well in the rehabilitative scenario. So everyone has led and followed all those steps. It involves something called dynamic balance, where you lose and regain balance with every single step, which is very, very important to improve balance in general. And it has involved, the steps have been progressive, so meaning you learn something new at every class, which is very important for your brain. Your brain likes to learn new things. It actually does. And if you're not wonderful at it at first, that's okay. Try again. The brain still likes that process of learning new things. The classes have also, we've had an individual with PD paired with a healthy volunteer, meaning someone who is posturally stable, who does not have any major postural instability. And this often includes people, pre-med students at like Emory University, who are very interested in working with an older adult population so that they can get into medical school down the road. And for other reasons, I'm sure. We use improvisation, so that people are, again, they don't have to remember all their steps. They can just go ahead and remember like a tool set, like step A, step B, step C, but mix and match them in the way they want to. The follower often experiences random perturbations. So someone's walking towards them, so they don't know if they're going to have to take a step back or to the side. And that is what we call random perturbation, because someone's walking into you and you don't know which direction you have to step next. But that's also very good for improving one's balance. So it can be a little scary, but it's okay. It's okay. And you've got the healthy volunteer holding on to your arms, and so you have that additional light touch contact, which is super, super important for rehabilitation and improving that dynamic balance that we all need. A great example of dynamic balance is just walking, okay? Because you are actually losing and regaining your balance with every single step. And then there's frequent rhythmic variation. I'm getting into studying music and rhythm, and I have like a special algorithm for learning rhythm that is pretty effective. We just have to do more research about that to find out the role of rhythm in particular in tango classes or others when we're trying to help folks with their gait and improving gait modification and modulation. And so what people get to do is they interpret motor goals through touch. They have to connect previously learned steps with new ones, which is a great learning thing as well, because if you can connect something you've already learned to something new, it's a better way to get it into long-term memory storage. They learn novel steps and movements every class. They get to develop musicality. And we have, a very specific structure, which is kind of broken down a little bit more than what you would see in like a traditional regular kind of Argentine tango class. So it's a little more specific, where we kind of break down everything into its basic elements so that folks can really practice and work on specific concepts and abilities rather than getting too much all at once. So it's very much about being very accessible. And yeah, there you have that. We have a greeting, we have a warm-up, we do partnering exercises and fundamentals, we do some rhythmic entrainment, there's a new step, and then you put everything together to the best of your ability, and you can come back another day to get it better. These are some of my fundamentals, and there's always fun in that which is fundamental. Thank you. Thank you. Da-da-da. Okay, so this is just one series. What I did was I took the regular kind of class that you might have at some ballroom studio, and I said, well, maybe folks with PD need at least one more class to learn the same amount of information for various reasons, right? And so they get that, they get the extra review and synthesize kind of step class. And then we do things like the mascot of Argentine tango is the cat or the panther. So at first we really think about how does a panther walk? And so we use metaphor, we use imagery. Dance does that a lot. There's a lot of good evidence from neural studies that shows metaphor and that kind of thing is actually really, really good for all of us. And as far as learning goes, we do a little embellished kind of step, which is a step that's not where you're actually stepping on and locomoting or going somewhere new, but you're just doing colorful stuff. That's what's embellishment. And then our rhythms, slows and quicks. I don't know if you ever went to what is it, the Arthur Murray Studios or whatever. They do the slows and the quicks, quick, quick, slow, quick, quick, slow, and all that. And so we do all sorts of different rhythms, and we just break it up. Instead of saying, okay, do this, fancy long dance sequence, we take it apart. And that's how people are able to do it and like it. Seriously, I really think that's great. And this is the best part of it. Whenever I teach dance classes, it doesn't matter who they are, I teach them this way now. And it works out much better, so I think that's interesting. So this is my homage or homage to other dances. And by the way, I did realize that apparently there are 2 accepted spellings of homage. Just so you know, there's a whole bunch of other, there are a lot of other dances in the world, and they're all amazing, and they're all terrific, but I just happen to have studied tango as in this research format, but I'm sure there's a lot that we can learn, and there's folks are studying all kinds of things that you wouldn't even believe, like Irish step dancing and belly dancing and Bharatanatyam and all kinds of things. It's a burgeoning field, and it's really exciting. This is just a model for how you might study dance. And so over the years, we've been able to figure out a number of things and answer several questions about how dance might affect motor function and cognition in particular. And so we were able to ask questions like, do tango steps and structure improve mobility more than steps and structure of other partner dances? People always like to ask that. They're like, oh, what have you done waltz? Or what have you done salsa? So I have the answer to some of those questions, but not all. Does a partner attenuate the mobility gains? Which is a great question, right? So if you're walking around and you're always holding on to someone else, is that going to translate into your functional life, your activities of daily living? This is something that we wanted to answer, and I can show you the data about that. And then our high volume intensive tango classes and feasible and efficacious. So this question of how much exercise should you get, and people with Parkinson's, there's a lot of emphasis on doing high intensity training. But, I'm kind of interested also in high volume, which means doing more of it, but maybe at a little lower intensity. Maybe that's also beneficial. And that can often work for some folks who are a little more intimidated by the super high intensity approaches. And then we also, importantly, were able to ask and answer, can adapted tango improve spatial cognition in particular? And so this is just some of, this is the very first study that I published years and years ago, in 2007 from LSU. And this showed that tango improved balance more than a traditional chair exercise program that was currently offered in St. Louis, Missouri at the time. And this was fun and everything, and the New York Times wrote up an article about it in science section. So I was like, ooh, I'm a doctoral student, and I got into the New York Times. And I thought, wow, it's going to be easy from here on out, which is not. Research is not like that at all. You slog through years and years, and you get a lot of, things that don't work out so well. But this was a great way to kick it off and keep me in research. I was like, yeah, this is awesome. We also were able to show that people in partner dance improved as much in fast and comfortable gait as non-partner dancers. So we had one group do like kind of line dance tango and the other group danced with a partner. And what we were able to show, which is really cool, is that there was no difference really. They all improved. So it's okay to have a partner. It's okay to have that helpful aid. You can still benefit in gait and walking and other sorts of mobility activities. And we also asked the question about waltz and foxtrot versus tango versus controls, which is a usual care group, meaning they were doing what their doctor told them to do and they took their medications as prescribed, et cetera, et cetera. And we were able to show that waltz and foxtrot and tango pretty much were very, very similar in improvement. So if you feel really, if you'd rather get your groove on with waltz, you go for it, okay? But I did continue to look at tango because tango has a number of steps and patterns and things, and it's a little more improvisational, and the startup cost is a lot less in tango because the basic step is literally just walk, okay? It's really just a walk. It's just walking like a cat, but it's walking. And so therefore, we decided to keep on going with the tango just because of its wonderful qualities in that way. And we were also able to show that disease severity improved in tango, but not in an education control group, which was a lot of fun, but they weren't getting up and moving and everything. So this shows that you do have to get up and move to get these particular motor benefits in the Unified Parkinson's Disease Rating Scale. You know this one? Anybody? Y'all know what I'm talking about? When they tug you at the shoulders? Anybody? Yeah, that's usually how we decide if the way one gets a diagnosis of Parkinson's. This is the Unified Parkinson's Disease Rating Scale right here. And the people who participated in tango actually improved in their disease severity. It got less over time, and our education group became more, unfortunately. Okay? And that was super cool because over 3 months later, they still had the same gains, okay? So people who participated in tango experienced reduced disease severity as measured by the Unified Parkinson's Disease Rating Scale Part 3. Then we had motor gains in other older populations. We can learn a lot from other populations. It doesn't have to always be exactly, Parkinson specific, because there's often similarities between different symptoms and pathways and other sorts of things. And so this is with older adults with low vision. I'm also a VA investigator. Veterans, thank you for your service. We I work a lot with veterans, and I've received funding from the United States Department of Veterans Affairs over the years, and I'm very, very grateful to them because they've really supported this work. So we have oldest old with low vision. These are individuals who were not completely blind, but they had very, very, extreme visual issues, especially in terms of acuity. And they also experienced gains in something called the 6-minute walk test, which is a test of endurance, the dynamic gait index, which is a test of that dynamic balance, walking with turning your head left and right, that kind of thing, and not getting dizzy, etc. And of course, the Berg Balance Scale, which is a test more of static balance than anything. So that's really cool. That gives you a lot of information about its effects on the motor system and the balance system. Adapted tango improved mobility, motor cognitive function more than a health education in oldest old adults in independent living communities. So these oldest old adults, oldest old means, by the way, 80 and older in some cases, and 85 and older in other papers, depending on how you're defining it. So these individuals were on average about 85 years old, and they technically didn't have anything neurological, but they might have had some things going on. But they also improved in a test called the 4-square step test, where you have to remember a path and go clockwise you have to go step over some rods, and you have to step with your feet like this on the rods and not step on the rods, and get into all the quadrants both as quickly and as safely as they could. And they actually got faster at doing that task in comparison to an education control group as well. And this particular finding actually supported my National Institutes on Health supported R01 that we have just completed, or we have to collect a little more data in people with prodromal Alzheimer's disease. So there are clearly some cognitive benefits of partner dance, and we think it comes from a variety of pathways, including aerobic exercise. It challenges balance and strength mechanisms, and then, of course, this cognitive training, the memory, the creativity, all of these good things. And so, yeah, we were able to show that spatial cognition also improved in tango, but not in an education group. And this is really cool because it was also maintained 12 weeks after the intervention had ceased. So this cognitive, this is one of the first pieces of evidence that we were able to produce in the Journal of Motor Behavior, I believe. Journal of Motor Behavior, which is your journal, right? Dan Huntsman, what? Oh, you're just one of the editors. Yes, well, anyway, that's pretty important. Years ago, we published this, and that was really exciting because spatial cognition is super important for getting around the world, right? You have to navigate, you have to find out where you are, know where you are in space, and so that's pretty cool. Okay, so there's also some psychosocial benefits of partner dance. We have run several qualitative studies where we've actually interviewed people about their experiences, their perceptions, their beliefs, and their attitudes after and during these dance class and programs. And we've found some really, touching stuff that seems to really speak to people's, emotional sense, their sense of well-being, their sense of who they are, and what in their community especially, which is super, super important. And we've learned that there's some themes that came up was they were able to adopt new activities and had increased confidence. They had felt like a lot of what they learned in the class was transferable to daily life. Some people mentioned like being able to go out to the street and get their mail in an easier fashion. And they had additional cognitive and perceptual awareness, and they felt like they had increased social interaction. And I just love these quotes. I think it was good to have that concentration. I found myself watching those dance instructors closely, and then I would learn. And I think the fact that I concentrated on it and put some structure into it, I think it was helpful to get myself to do that. So that's one. When I'm walking, I think of the music, and I try to march to the rhythm of the music. And if I start lagging, which I tend to do, then I play a little march rhythm and bring myself up to speed, which speaks to how music, there might be a song you like out there. There might be a song that just works for you and gets you going. Go for it. That's a real thing. It's a real thing. It taps into the right neural mechanisms and lets the body have better mobility. Before this tango thing started, I wasn't a joiner. I hadn't been around people except for my mother. And now getting out to meet people with PD and seeing how lucky I was 14 years into this, I'm really doing pretty good, luckier than some. And I think some of the things, what it seemed to be hearing is that it opened doors to other activities. So it's not all about the dancing, right? It's about what this leads to and how that can open up windows and get, kind of get you on a different path, right? And it's good for the caregivers as well because you can do it together and things like, so let's see. It may have existed to do other things that got us more involved, more active. All right. So yeah, this actually is interesting, though. This is just some of the research that we've been able to show. And this is something I did with Dr. Bennett, and she is at Montevallo College now in Alabama. But this shows that there's actually a mismatch between subjective and objective motor improvements. So we might have measured someone for their gait, and we could have said, you improved in your gait. You're walking faster now. But when we asked them, did you notice if you improved in gait? They were like, no, I didn't. They didn't see it. So there's actually this mismatch, and this is just one study about this, and I don't know if it's just about dance in particular, but there can be a mismatch between like what people think and what, objectively is measured by someone else. And that's just something to think about. I think it could be applied in a lot of different ways. I will say that if, the way people feel and patient-reported outcomes, they're very vital. It's really important. And I think, quality of life and being happy and those sorts of things and seeing and feeling good about yourself is very, very important. Okay, here comes the like heavy duty neural stuff, but I'm going to try my best to kind of like, again, just kind of give you like a glimpse into what the future is and some of the ways we're trying to figure out why we would have seen these things, that like somebody's better at balance or someone's doing better in cognition. We want to know why. Why is that? And the way you do this sometimes, I happen to have gone down the neural imaging path, is you put people into a functional magnetic resonance imaging scanner, and we look at what the brain is doing. So there's potential dance benefit mechanisms, and this applies to not just dance, but to physical therapy in general, and probably any sort of therapeutic. There's this idea in Parkinson's that the areas affected by PD, which might be like the basal ganglia structures in the subcortical area of the brain, might actually be working better somehow. So the activity might be enhancing the activity. So it's functioning better. It's talking to the neurons are working better. The synaptic connections are better. They're stronger, what have you. But that basically, like, it's kind of the idea that you're fixing the area that's not working so well. There's also this idea of compensation, which physical therapy goes into a heck of a lot. Because this idea of like using external cues like music and a partner, maybe it bypasses the areas that aren't functioning so well in the Parkinson's brain and goes and uses other parts of the brain that are still like not affected so much. And the cerebellum is one example of those, because a lot of people have pretty good functioning cerebellum, but maybe the basal ganglia are not, doing as much as they have been. So we want to know, why does dance work? And in 2011 or 12, I decided I really wanted to study, is there a difference between leading dancing and following dancing? Okay, so Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. Ginger did everything backwards and in heels, right? That's what they say. So, there is a lot different, right? They're doing completely different things. They're people who are following are often walking backwards more, which might be a reason that people get better. But the leader has to engage internally, they have to engage and cognitively focus, and they have to plan direction, timing, and amplitude. So there's a lot going on there, and I wanted to study the differences between the two so we can figure out which people should do which role. Because I've been having them all do both roles, which works out extremely well, and I'm still studying that a lot. But we're looking more closely at this particular study right now that I conducted. From 2013 to 2018-ish, we collected data on this one. So leading, I already mentioned this, you get to plan and select the movement, and it's hard. I don't know if you've ever tried leading a dance step. It's not easy. You need to be kind of bold and just go for it. And then following involves a lot of response to external cues, and that has its own challenges as well. And so what I think of is leading is this sort of like internally guided strategy, right? Which actually the basal ganglia is a lot responsible for that sort of thing, the ability to self-initiate movement. You have to plan a motor program, direction, distance, timing, interpret the music, rotation. You have to determine the amount of rotation, that is, of the couple, the trajectory, the path that the couple takes through the ballroom world or whatever. And then you kind of have to have a world-centric perspective. So you're focusing a lot on your dance partner, but you have to know what else is going on as you move around. Whereas the following, I think, is kind of like an externally guided strategy. So you're taking in all the information from the world, cues, to tell you what to do next. So it's visual, it's auditory, it's tactile, all these things. You have to respond to a motor program. If one is following, they have to have motor program flexibility. So you can't be too committed to one movement or timing. You have to be ready to figure out, what are we doing now? And you have to do this over and over again, like as you're moving along, if it's an improvisational thing, because you don't know what's coming next at you. And so that's its own form of rehabilitation, right? Because in our daily lives, we have to be ready for that. You don't know what the environment's going to throw at you. You know, if you're standing on the street in New York, I used to live in New York, a bus could come along and you'd have to quickly back up, right? So there's these sorts of things that you have to be prepared for in our very interesting world that's always changing and dynamic. But in this case, in following, at least it's constrained to you get your cues from your leader, who hopefully is worthy of being followed. And then we have balanced reaction, and you have to be able to detect those cues in between. And this is the other thing that's going on in dancing. There's this partnership, and you have to think about, maybe you're thinking about how it looks, the aesthetics, the dynamic balance, and of course, musical cues. And as it happens, there happens to be distinct cortical and cerebellar involvement in internally and externally guided movement, in leading and following. There's distinct areas that you have to engage if you're being a leader, and distinct brain areas you have to engage if you're being a follower. And these pathways have been looked at in lots and lots and lots of studies. And this is a study I did, a review paper I did in 2015, which I am pretty proud of, in Frontiers of Neurology. Oh, by the way, after this, feel free to email me, mehackn@emory.edu. I would love to be a resource for every one of you out there if I can, okay? If you have questions about the talk or anything else, feel free to do so. So now, without getting too much into this, but the caudate, that's part of the basal ganglia. The putamen is also part of the basal ganglia, and these are the areas that get really affected by Parkinson's in particular. And so what happens is, this basically shows that the neural networks that underlie self-initiated, internally guided movement are especially implicated in Parkinson's because of this basal ganglia issue, where the signals are just not as good. They're a little messed up, okay? And so what happens, though, externally guided movement is generally considered to be kind of preserved, at least in earlier stages with Parkinson's, because of the ability to take in sensory information and use other parts of the brain to compensate. Okay, that's a theory. And this is well supported by multiple imaging studies. And so my thought was, if people dance the leading role, then maybe they'll remediate some of the areas in the basal ganglia, because they're specifically using those areas. Whereas if the compensation idea, if the reason people are getting better from dance is because they are compensating, what you're going to see is our followers, those who dance the following role, are going to do better because they're able to use these cues to compensate for any issues, any sort of motor issues they may have, and move better. So what we had to do, guys, is develop this hugely complex rhythmic foot tapping task that took a year to develop. I don't know, a year doesn't even seem that long to me now, because I have some papers that I've been working on for 6 years and whatever. But at the time, 1 year, I was like, my God, it took me a year to develop this method. That's a long time if you only have 5 and you're trying to get all your work done, you know, because when you get a career development award, they give you 5 years to get your goals all set up and everything and achieve them. So yeah, we ended up coming up with the tango rhythm, which is slow, slow, quick, quick, slow, 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 a quick, quick, slow. And so we had a bunch of people with Parkinson's and some older adults, God bless them all, lay in a scanner for an hour and a half. Yeah. Yeah, I did that. They lay in the scanner for an hour and a half, and then they tapped their toe for 20 minutes. To the T-A-N-G-O. I mean, some folks, man, they are some research volunteers out there, right? What's that? Maybe they got $25 for that visit. I think it got increased to $75 if they came back a third time. So yeah, we pay them, but they're doing it for the science, guys. So, you know, anybody who participates in research, it means, you know, if someone like you participates in research, that means you're going to benefit from that research down the road, and that's how we do it. Yeah, I have some amazing volunteers. Anyway, what this shows is that some of them were able, this is like ideal measured versus ideal. So this is someone who did pretty darn well, between what we asked them to do and what they actually did, right? Because this is measured on top of ideal, if that makes sense. So the ideal trace, that means they did a pretty good job with it. And this shows, like it's a fancy way of showing that they're doing what we're asking them to do. And so we got that done. This is I'm just showing you this for the fun of it. This is the hemodynamic response. And it's just showing, this is the motor cortex, I'm pretty sure. And it's just showing that it goes up and down. Yeah, it's the motor area of the lower limb. And it's showing that we get a nice signal, they're doing the thing, and it's working out real well. You have to show that evidence that your paradigm is actually good and working. Am I going too slow or anything like that?
It's wrap-up time.
Oh, no, I've been having such a good time. Oh, well, how many minutes do I have? Because I didn't see, did somebody show me a sign?
Oh, sorry.
Lordy, lordy, lordy. Okay, well, that's good. Well, I will wrap up then. So, yes, stay tuned, everyone, because I am going to be publishing all of this very soon, but we got all sorts of information. If you see this, you see all kinds of images of brains of people who went through leading or following, and they did 20 lessons, and they got 30 hours of training, and we are doing other things, and I already told you all about, and that's that, I guess. I'm also looking at some sort of ballet stuff, too, down the road. You know what? I know that AI is a big deal and everything, and you're probably like, oh, AI. Watch out for dance therapies and Parkinson's, okay? Because it's going to be the thing coming up. There are so many good ways to train and keep your body strong and healthy and the mind active. And so get involved with that. And that's that. And now, is this before, do we have time for Q&A?
Yes, we're going to do.
Oh, you're stopping me for Q&A. Okay. So remember, partner dance is a movement conversation. There's another thing I want to give you a sneak peek of. The robots are coming, everyone. Yep, it's true, so be prepared for that. I'm also involved with that, and we're using partner dance as a way to make a robot better, like a caregiving robot, because the way a caregiving robot interacts with a human being is very important, and if it's going to be robotic, you want that robot to be safe and everything, and we're doing really key work that's going to lead to better caregiver robots down the road. This stuff is inevitable.
Well,
sorry, they're coming, Susan.
Well, thank you. I'm waiting for them. Maybe next year I won't have to MC. We can have a robot.
Or an AI chat GPT.
That's right.
Minerva or something like that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Madeline, so much. We appreciate all the work that you do for Parkinson's, and you gave us a lot of really great information today. Now we are going to have a few minutes of Q&A. So if you have a question for Madeline, please raise your hand.
So I just had a quick question. Are you saying for the Parkinson patient, it's better that they be the leader
Oh,
than the follower?
It's inconclusive as of now, and I haven't published yet. I'll have to send you a paper about it.
So there's no pro
We
or
don't
con?
know. Well, I haven't
Okay.
been able to publish it. It hasn't come out. I was going to give you a sneak preview. I would say it kind of depends on the individual, okay? And if you want to work on planning, motor planning, organization, and you want to work on the executive function, be a leader. And if you need to work a little bit more on perhaps dynamic balance, as special, and posture and gait, be a follower. Okay? Great question.
How do we find a class?
How do you find a class? Well, here in Baton Rouge and New Orleans, I can't tell you exactly. I know that there's a New Orleans group. I mean, these days it seems like all sorts of groups are coming up more and more. I think that we have a presentation from
We have
the New
NOBA,
Orleans.
the New Orleans Ballet, and they do classes in Baton Rouge, don't they?
Yeah, they'll be speaking right
Yeah.
after me, and I think they can answer
But I'm
a lot
pretty
of
sure
those
they're in Baton
questions.
Rouge.
Another thing you could do is, I would recommend this, is like some people can go, you can work with a a private ballroom dance instructor, and if they've been doing it a long time, they probably have a lot of good ways of working with folks, if you can, do a private lesson as well.
Yes.
Is the robot the evolution of the mop?
Can you repeat that?
Can you,
Is the robot the evolution of the mop?
is the robot the revolution of Damas?
Is the robot
is
the
the
evolution of the
robot-
what?
Is the robot the evolution of a mop?
Of a mop?
Yeah.
As in a mop?
And then you have
Oh! Yeah, I
dance
think
with a
so. I think so. Definitely. It's the evolution of a mop.
Whatever works.
Very good.
Do we have any other questions at this time? Well, thank you so much, Madeline. We
thanks.
truly appreciate it.